Today I want to tell you how to use the state akin to sleep that Neville Goddard talks about to manifest anything you want. So this is a technique that I've personally tried and has worked great for me, but I want to explain how I use it because a lot of people seem to get certain terms wrong with it. But it's actually pretty simple. So state akin to sleep, Neville talks about, is basically where you go to bed at night and you imagine before you go to sleep what you want. Now, I see people ask a lot of questions like, do I need to feel emotion when I do this? Do I have to believe what I'm seeing? Do I have to loop the same scene? Does it have to be first person? There's so many questions and people seem to overcomplicate it, but it's actually pretty simple. So let's jump into this. So why does Neville seem to really push for this technique to be used when manifesting? So I'm just going to read a little part of a quote where he talks about state akin to sleep. He goes into saying, it is a state akin to sleep, but one in which you are still in control of the direction of attention. And then later on in this quote, he says, the value of physical immobility shows itself in the accumulation of mental force, which absolute stillness brings with it. It increases your power of concentration. So being in this sleepy state, you're immobile, you can concentrate a bit better. That's where he's going with that. He also pretty much says that while you're in this state, your subconscious is it's easy to impress it more. And then you go to sleep in this state of having what you want, and you carry that throughout the entire night. Now, I want to tell you that this absolutely does work. Except I want to go over the parts that people seem to get wrong. And I'm going to answer all these things by just explaining what I do. So when I go to bed at night, I lay down. Actually, I don't lay down because I tend to fall asleep really quick if I do that. I sleep on my front, so I'll lay on my back so I don't fall asleep quick, and I'll imagine what I want. Now, I pick a scene that I like. So if I'm manifesting money, I will see my bank account on my phone or on my computer have a lot more than it does. And then maybe I will imagine going out and buying certain things that I want, or already having certain things that I want, which implies that I have spent the money to get it. And then on top of that, just feeling rich and wealthy. Because if you imagine feeling poor, you feel, not really great. But if you imagine feeling wealthy, you feel, very full, abundant, just happy. It's a very different feeling. And so all of these things matter when you're doing this. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll just loop all those scenes together. Neville seems to talk about doing one scene and looping that, but you don't have to really do just one scene. In fact, there's not really any rules to this. People also talk about you have to do it from first person, otherwise it won't work. But to that I say, no, that's not true. If imagining from third person, which is not from your eyes, looking like you're watching a movie of you doing this, if that feels better to do, you should absolutely do that. Your subconscious or your entity is not stupid, it knows exactly what you're doing and what it means, so you can do whatever feels best to you. That is the best part of all of this. You can do exactly what feels good as long as it gets you into the state of feeling like you have what you want. And so that's what it comes down to. There's not really any rules. If you want to loop the same scene over and over, go for it. But I find for me personally, if I spam my mind with a bunch of scenes, some even lasting 1 second and that's it, and I just spam all these things, it's very creative and it feels good and actually gets me really excited. And then I just sort of stop because I feel good. I'm in that state now. To me, in that moment, I start to believe that what I just imagined is real and it's who I am. It's a very calm, knowing feeling. And then I just sleep in that. And so I just sort of keep doing this every night until eventually I find that, hey, I haven't really imagined for this anymore. What the heck? And it turns out it's because I've just sort of accepted it and I believe it. And eventually, very shortly after, it actually comes into physical reality. It just sort of happens in my real life. It just unfolds and manifests. And I didn't expect it or see it coming, but it was like, wow, I can see exactly how I created this because I was imagining for it. Now, something that I also do that is very important is I try to make it feel as real as possible. So I really get into what I'm imagining. I'll admit, some nights this is harder to do than others, but I feel really, really good at the end of it if I've added emotion to the scene. So does emotion matter when you're doing this? Yes and no. So you don't have to do emotion, but it really, really helps if you do. So there's two people that I really like to study all of this stuff. So there's Neville Goddard and there's Seth who was channeled by Jane Roberts. And Seth actually goes into this as well. There are countless Seth quotes talking about emotion, but I'll just read one that I found. This one's short and simple. The intensity of a feeling or thought or mental images, therefore, the important element in determining its subsequent physical materialization. So he's saying the important element in something manifesting is the intensity of a feeling or thought or mental image. And so if you make something more intense, more emotions, try to make it more and more real. You can even, if you want, to add like physical senses, like touch and stuff, or smells, stuff like that. Just make it as intense as you can. It's the important element to get what you want even faster. It helps a lot. It's not completely necessary. Sometimes it's harder to do it some nights, but it'll make things a lot easier if you do that. Now, everything that I just told you is very important to get State Akin to Sleep to work, but it's not the only thing that you can do to manifest. And that's because State Akin to Sleep is just a technique. There are countless ways to manifest something in your reality. You manifest all the time and you don't do State Akin to Sleep to get things in your life that you presently have. It's just that State Akin to Sleep is one technique of many. So you can do scripting. You can even just do general imagining and visualizing, not in a state akin to sleep. You can do affirmations. All of these techniques work, but they only work because they achieve the same thing, and that is getting you into the state of having what you want. If you really resonate with scripting and it gets you feeling like you have what you want, that is perfect. That is what you should try to strive for. That is the correct way to use a technique. Now, if you do these techniques over time and you don't contradict what you just imagined throughout the day, you don't go around thinking you don't have your SP or your money or whatever the heck you're manifesting. And so if you do these techniques frequently enough, even if it's like once a day, you will eventually change who you are by doing this. If you imagine having what you want every single day and you really get into that feeling, that deep knowing that is true, that you have what you want, you will eventually change the beliefs that you need to change in order to create it in physical reality. So manifesting really comes down to changing your beliefs. You can use whatever technique you want, but as long as you eventually change your beliefs, you will get what you want. So that goes into the last question I often see. Do you have to believe what you're imagining? And the answer is yes, but it's not like some daunting thing. You don't have to believe it at first, but the point of a technique is to get you feeling like you have it so that you can believe it. I often see people say that beliefs are not required when manifesting, and it's just so completely wrong. That Neville himself talks about that beliefs are important to manifest. Seth also talks about it all the time. It's definitely required. Looking back on things I manifested, yes, I have believed it every single time. Maybe not fully, maybe there were some doubts still, but generally, overall, yeah, I believe that I was going to be the person who has what I want eventually. But it is not some daunting thing. When I look back on everything that I've manifested, yeah, I did change the beliefs. And it was just imagining what I want over and over again for a little while until I eventually believed it. And oftentimes I didn't even realize I believe it. You don't have to believe it fully, Things that I've manifested, I still had a little bit of doubt here and there. But overall, generally, I believe that yes, I was one day, possibly soon, going to be the person who had what I wanted, and then it happened. So for me, these techniques have worked in a very short amount of time, like within weeks, maybe a month. It's very easy to use this, but a big important part of this is you can't contradict what you're imagining. So Seth talks about you get what you concentrate upon, so make sure you concentrate upon good things. It can be very tempting to want to slip into, negative focus, like feeling sorry for myself, all that kind of stuff, but it's very unproductive to get what you want. And I want you guys to get everything you want, so don't focus on the bad stuff. It really is true that you should focus only on what you want, and that's it. Ignore all the other stuff. I feel like I started to ramble at the end there, but that is how to use State Akin to Sleep. It's pretty simple. It should feel good to do, and eventually over time you'll start to believe what you're seeing, and it's kind of magical. So let me know what you thought about this video. If you want me to make more videos, I want to hear your suggestions down below, like what topics do you guys want, because I want to teach a lot. I've been using it for a huge chunk of my life, so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to start teaching it now online. So comment down below what you think. I hope I'm a good teacher. That's like a belief that I really need to work on here, is to be a good teacher. because I really want to spread this stuff. It's very important to me to spread this to as much people as I can. So basically, bye.